In this movie, I wanted to talk about the pencil tool, the brush tool, and when you should use one or the other. There are similarities and differences, and we'll cover those. So I'm clicking on the pencil, and my properties window, which is one of the windows you most likely will keep open all the time, changes. You'll notice if you click on the tools, you get different things for each tool. So the properties that we have in the pencil tool are the line color, notice there's no fill color, the thickness of the stroke, which right now is 12, and that's pixels, that it's a solid, and that it's got a normal scale, and then we've also got this cap business. There's also something called smoothing down here, which is currently set to 50. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw a line, and I'm doing this with a trackpad, so it's got some not so nice curves, but that's actually good for what I want to show you, which is that if I click on the line, unlike other programs where when you click on something it selects it in its entirety, Flash, for better or for worse, only selects the part that it sees as a segment. If I had wanted to select the whole thing and I had these segments, I would just go ahead and double click, and now you can see I've got the little mattressing look in all of the line. Another thing that's quite different from Illustrator, and Illustrator users, you may find this frustrating or you might really like it, is that when you're trying to correct a curve and you're not really worried about it being perfect, notice that when I get near a line, like this curve here, my cursor is accompanied by a little curve, and that means I can just pull on the shape and change it without having to get out, the pen tool or anything like that. I can just go in here and pull segments of lines, and that can be a good thing. Another peculiar thing about Flash, notice again I'm selecting this, is if I drag a piece of line and I put it over another line, once I release it from selection, if I were to select this again, it is now segmented from the other line. Again, this is something you might love or you might hate, depending on what you're used to. This has got little rounded ends. That is actually the characteristic called a cap. And right now it's got rounded caps on. You have a choice of none, round, or square. Round is the default. So if you watch the line, I'm going to change it to none. You'll see that it goes a little bit shorter. That's actually the length of the line. So the caps stick out beyond the length of the line. So if you were, trying to make a very specific length of line, and you might get a little frustrated thinking it keeps showing up longer, and that's because of the caps. So again, you can put rounded edges on, or you can do square, which look very much like when there are no caps, but again, that little square is beyond the edge of the line. Lastly, I think perhaps, oh no, wait, there's more. No, I'll leave it at that. We've got the solid line right now. You can choose hairline, you can choose dashed, and notice you won't see it. Well, this one's not showing it because it's so fat. Let's go back in here. Line, let's go for dotted perhaps. You'll see that, yes. Dotted lines, scratchy lines, all kinds of lines, and they do retain their line characteristics. So if I were to choose a shape and then give it a dotted line, it would, maintain its line characteristics in that I can bend it around. As you go down the list of line styles, it takes up a little more memory. So this stippled one and the hatched one take up more memory, of course, than the solid. And that doesn't mean too terribly much unless you're trying to develop something really, really small for a handheld device or some such thing, in which case you might want to be frugal about the types of lines you use, as well as everything else. So I'm going to erase these now, and let's talk about the paintbrush for a moment. Paintbrush. I've also got black for the moment, and some of the characteristics I have here are mitering, smoothing again, color. If I click on this, I can choose a color. Some of the colors are going off screen, I see, but when you do it, you'll see it. So let's say I'm going to pick a lovely pink line, and I'm just going to draw again. This time, if I go to modify my curve, you're going to see that in fact this isn't really a line, even though it looks like a line. It's a shape. It's just a very skinny shape. And which do you think would require more memory? A line that shape or a paintbrush line that shape? If you guessed paintbrush, you're correct. It's because you have to define the points all the way around, so those points take up a little more memory. Okay, so that's one reason to decide whether you're going to use a line or a paintbrush. I wanted to show you smoothing, but this is starting to get long, so I'm going to do that in the very next movie. Remember, if you're going to use a pencil, if you want a line, use a pencil, even if you want a hatched line, and if you want a shape, use the paintbrush.